welcome to the April 2019 edition of City Connection, the live television program where you, citizens of Grand Rapids, can ask our mayor about local issues. Joining me on City Connection is Grand Rapids Mayor Bliss. We come together to offer the community an opportunity to hear about efforts from City Hall and beyond, and we'll also provide opportunity for your questions and comments later in the program. Today we also welcome into the studio AJ Alvin Hills of the city's Business Development Department. Mayor Bliss will be interviewing Hills about Grand Rapids' efforts through the Supplier Diversity Program in purchasing goods and services. We'll also talk with Hills about some of the opportunities available to entrepreneurs if you're interested in doing business with the city. Your opportunity to take part in the conversation, that comes a little bit later in the second half of the program. You can do that through email, cityconnection@grcmc.org, or send your tweets to @GRTVAccess, commenting at GRTV's Facebook page as well. City Connection, a collaboration between Community Media Center and Grand Rapids, the City of Grand Rapids, broadcasting today live on channel 24, April 1st, today we are live. We'll also be rebroadcasting throughout the month on channel 25. So I want to say welcome to the show, Mayor.
Yeah,
we've got a busy City Connection, busy things going on in our city.
Lots going on, and it's April. Happy April, happy
Dare we
spring.
call it spring? Well, let's do it. Let's call it spring.
I'm embracing it. It's supposed to be 60 this weekend, so.
It sounds wonderful for spring break. There's so much to talk about. I wanted to ask you about a bunch of things, including, let's start with the first one, because housing is such a priority for you and other city efforts there. It's the Housing Now recommendations. I had a few new ones come out this past, week or so?
Yes, so these are the recommendations. We actually have been talking about them at length. They're, over the last, I would say, 6 months, they've been amended and adjusted based on some of the conversations around the City Commission table, also after getting input from the community, and then making their way back to the Planning Commission before they come back to us. So these are 3 that we talked about in December, and then again in February. In February we had kind of like a mini work session, and then they came back as in their final form as ordinances on last Tuesday. So the City Commission voted on them, and there were 3. One of them is a density bonus. So if you add affordable housing to your project, you can get a density bonus, meaning you can add additional height to your building. The other one was allowing accessory dwelling units, and I know we've talked about those on this program before as well.
A little bit of forgiveness on setbacks and that sort of thing? Or?
Yeah, so we made some changes on the size, and they can be 2-story, and then we also created this kind of a little bit of a hybrid approval process. So you can go through this kind of qualified approval process and get the administrator or the planning director to sign off if you don't have any concerns voiced by your neighbors. So what that means is, let's say you want to build a accessory dwelling unit, and you submit your forms to the city will notify your neighbors. If none of your neighbors have concerns, then the planning director can sign off. If any of your neighbors voice concerns, then it would go before the planning commission before approval or denial. So it's a little bit of a hybrid. We haven't done something like that before, but we wanted to make sure that, if it's my neighbor and they want to build a 2-story ADU and I'm not okay with it, I want to make sure that that neighbor has an opportunity to be heard. But if your neighbor doesn't have any concern, a lot of these are set back. They're back by the alley. In some neighborhoods, they're I think in a perfect location for ADUs. So if there aren't any concerns, then that can be approved. And then the third one, which we had a lot of discussion about, and that is to allow 2-family units or a duplex on corner lots. So we have about 490 vacant corner lots in the city right now. And we really want to spur development, especially housing on those lots. And when you look at our housing stock, we don't have a lot of 2-family or duplexes throughout the city in a lot of different neighborhoods. So we have a couple intent with this one. And this one, really, we had the most concerns voiced by the neighbors. And so my thought is, and why I voted yes on it is for a couple of reasons. One, we do have an opportunity to do some what we call gentle infilling, as well as adding some density in neighborhoods on those corner lots. Secondly, it gives us a chance to try it before we finalize a master plan. So we're going to this year scope out what a master plan update will look like. And then we'll be moving forward with the master plan. Our planning director says it will probably take 2 to 2.5 years to be finalized. This issue can be revisited during the master planning process. And then we can have it embedded in the master plan once that goes through. So it gives us a couple years to see if it has a positive impact and if we're able to do some infill. The other thing, and Commissioner Apart talked about this, is that if one concern that was raised was, will this result in single family homes being demolished and 2 families being built? And when you looked at the data, there's only been 3 corner lots that were single family that were converted to 2 family in the last year. It's really costly to buy a single family home and demolish and then build a 2 family. So you gotta kind of weigh that risk. And after having several conversations, we didn't think it was a huge risk of that happening, at least significantly. You know, there are some single family homes on corner lots that are probably in a condition where it is hard to renovate them, or they can't be renovated and they may be demolished, but we don't think it's going to happen carte blanche. And if we do start to see a significant uptick or concern with demolition requests, then we can always push pause and pass a moratorium.
Okay.
So it's not that we won't be able to respond if there's concerns, but this again is really trying to create an opportunity for some housing. And with duplexes, one thing we heard from quite a few folks is that, you know, duplex also offers an opportunity for an individual to live in a home and have rental income, just like ADUs, and that can also help people pay their bills and help with that affordability piece. So it's very complex. We took a lot of input, and I know, you know, we are doing the best that we can with the information that we have, and hopefully we'll start to see an impact.
Okay.
Yeah.
So thanks for the update on those three pieces of recommendation. Next thing I wanted to ask you a little bit about is medical marijuana lottery. Is that the next step
Yes.
for awarding some of that?
Yes, so we had about roughly 90 applications come in. The vast majority of those are for dispensaries. The planning department is going through and they're vetting those right now. And then based on the MyVita, they'll look at how many points the applicants have, and then they'll be put into these tiers, and then there will be a lottery. And that is to take place on April 26th. And you know, the why everyone wants to be considered first is because in the ordinance there are distance requirements. So let's say on this 5-block radius, there's an opportunity for 1 dispensary. Once that first dispensary gets their license and approval to open there, then the properties in the 2,000 radius, 2,000-foot radius, those properties will no longer be eligible. And so that's why there's this real push for applicants who want to be considered first. And so the lottery, it's a weighted lottery, as our planning director calls it, was the most fair way we could come up with to do that.
Okay, and that is, so deadline is already passed or coming
Deadline's
for the applicants?
passed,
And then the lottery on the 26th of this month.
Yes, and that will be streamed live on our Facebook. So those of you
exciting.
Interested in watching,
Will it be ping pong balls?
you can. I have no idea. Actually, I have stayed pretty removed of the process. You know, our job was to pass the ordinance, and now it's the planning department's job to do the implementation of that. And you know, you want to be really mindful of making clear to people that you don't have influence over the process. The process is in place, and they have to go through that process just like everyone else. So I've kept an arm's length since the ordinance was passed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, in town was Urban Land Institute recently doing a study
yes.
of GR parks. A little bit of was there a walkthrough of sorts, looking at the properties and looking at what is some public spaces or other park options?
Yeah, so this is really excited that I was excited to hear that we were selected along with about a dozen other cities for the Urban Land Institute to send in a team of experts to look at where you currently are with your park land, what you need to do to reach that goal of making sure that there's a park within 10 minutes safe walking distance of every child. And then they go beyond just saying, this is the goal and these are the areas that need it, but they took a deeper dive into looking at opportunities where parks could be acquired or created in order to meet that goal. So they looked at a lot of green fields that already exist but are in private hands or other county, other public hands. So they looked at some county-owned land, some privately owned land that potentially could be acquired and turned into parkland. And then they identified partners in the community that potentially could help make that happen. So it was very interesting. They were here for a couple days. They spent a lot of time touring the city, especially our neighborhoods that are deplete green space. They interviewed quite a few people, and then they came up at the end of the 3 days. They presented back a presentation on their findings and recommendations.
Okay, so city have some ideas of some steps to take?
Yeah, we do. We do, I should say, but we really need to think through what is the most feasible, right? I mean, I can identify a piece of land somewhere, but if you have a private owner who's unwilling to sell or is just asking an unreasonable amount of money for it, it may be out of reach, at least at this point in time. I think there's some other properties that are a little bit more low-hanging fruit that are currently in the hands of the county, and I think there's an opportunity to partner with other public entities to potentially make those spaces more available to the public. Okay. So I think those are the ones that we'll really be looking at first, and then there's also some opportunity around trails and green spaces that we already have, kind of natural spaces that aren't technically parkland. And I think there's an opportunity to build some there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Follow that one up with Mayor's Greening Initiative. You have another tree planting day coming up later in the month.
Yeah, so this is our annual tree planting. We do it in conjunction with Arbor Day, and so actually that entire week leading up to the tree planting, which is Saturday, April 27th. So if you want to come out and plant some trees with me, typically we have about 500 volunteers, and we plant anywhere from 400 to 500 trees. The night before that, on April 26th, we'll be giving away hundreds of trees to the community to plant on private property. And then the days before that, I'll be going into schools throughout the community and giving away saplings. So I think last year I gave away about 500 saplings to 4th and 5th graders.
Wow,
so,
exciting. And then just wanted to, you target a neighborhood. So this time, where is it going to be? Where should everybody be?
So this year we're going to plant in the Roosevelt Park neighborhood. And how we come up with that is we have a tree inventory of the entire city, and we identify neighborhoods that really need some tree canopy. Or like last year we did it here on the west side, and we tried to create a buffer to the expressway from the neighborhood, so that was a real priority to us. But Roosevelt Park neighborhood, it's perfect timing because we just did a lot of infrastructure improvements, so new streets, new sidewalks, and so it's perfect to get in there and plant some trees and get some trees into the hands of neighbors.
Perfect, and greening. All right, well, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, the mayor will be talking with Elvin A.J. Hills with the city's Business Development Department. We'll be right back on City Connection.
Hi, my name is Malik Greer, and our nonprofit organization, Positive Impact for Life, will be hosting a free mental health awareness seminar titled Music Health, Healing the Mind, Body, and Soul on Saturday, April 27, 2019 at 10 a.m. This unique, one-of-a-kind seminar will utilize worship music and combine community resources that have an impact on healthy mental health issues. This free community seminar is open to everyone and will include breakout sessions titled Working Through Anxiety and Depression, Couples and Co-Parenting, Suicide Prevention, and Grief and Loss by licensed psychologists, music and other community resources that promote modeling, valuing, and journeying with those who live with mental illnesses. Our keynote speaker will be Judge Glenda Hatchett from the Judge Hatchett Syndicated Show. Registration will begin at 8:30 a.m. but you can pre-register and pick your session by visiting www.positiveimpactforlife.org and choosing the Events tab and then Upcoming. We have wonderful sponsors: Spectrum Health, Gordon Food Services, Magic 104.9, Greensmith Management, and a couple of others. This seminar will help attendees to understand, empathize, and support those who are struggling with the stigma of mental illnesses, and we hope to see you there.
The Grand Rapids Public Museum and the John Ball Zoo have partnered with Culture City to make their exhibits, programs, and events sensory inclusive. To promote an accommodating and positive experience for guests with a sensory issue, sensory bags equipped with noise-canceling headphones, fidget tools, verbal cue cards, and weighted lap pads will be available to check out at each location. Prior to attending the zoo or museum, families can download the Culture City app, where they can view what sensory inclusive features are now available, as well as preview what to expect while enjoying their visit. Find out more at grpm.org. Grand Rapids Public Museum. Be curious.
Welcome back. I'm excited and happy to have with me a colleague of mine at the city. I'll let him tell you a bit about himself, but it's Alvin Hills, although I always call you AJ, which most people do.
Absolutely.
And he is our business development expert at the city. So we're going to hear more about what you do, how long you've been there, why it's important. So let's first start with a little bit about you and your background.
So I'm Alvin Hills IV, go by AJ, born and raised in this great city of Grand Rapids, Michigan, and I'm the fourth, so there's been 3 Alvins before me, so I've been able to step into some rich legacy back home, but went to school at Grand Rapids Creston and GRPS all of my upbringing, and got my degree from Western Michigan and came back home in 2014 with the emphasis to play my part in the community, and that kind of segued me to the city, and now I get to do awesome things with you for a living.
That's right. And so for people who don't know, you've actually done a few different things at the city.
Absolutely.
So talk a little bit about your time at the city. You're going on, what, 5 years now?
Yeah, going on 5 years.
Okay.
So I began as the title is lengthy, liability risk management analyst, but pretty much all things insurance related when it comes to liability and administration of our small claims process. So I am very glad I was promoted from there, because this is pothole season, and right now our phones will be ringing off the hook. But I learned a great deal about what it takes to protect our infrastructure, our employee assets, as well as our financials over there, which kind of segued me over to play a little more offense for the city as a business developer. So I greatly enjoy this role and helping to make sure that our dollars stay local, and that we spend as many Grand Rapids companies as possible. So that's kind of a little bit what I do now.
Yeah. So you work in partnership with diversity and inclusion, and
Absolutely.
then also procurement.
Absolutely.
And so tell us a little bit about the scope of what you do at the city.
Okay, so we have a wonderful program called the Micro Local Business Enterprise Program, and what this program is it's a certification that's completely free for any local company to take advantage of, and it does have some qualifying criteria. So one of those things are they have to be in operations for 2 years, a minimum of 24 months. The second thing is that their headquarters, their primary business office, has to be located in the Kent County. And then they have to register in our financial system as well as the federal system for awards management. And a lot of people ask, like, why the federal system if I'm looking to do business with the city? However, we want to make sure that we're not your only revenue source, or even just one of the few, but the federal opportunity creates another form of revenue for companies, as well as they'll be alerted for potential federal contracting opportunities. The fourth thing is when we do qualified companies, we ask that their annual 3-year revenue average is 25% or less of the SBA standard. And it also, sometimes the SBA looks at employee size. So the best example I could give as far as revenue is if your commodity code or your industry code says 10 million is small business, then we look to make sure that your annual revenues are 2.5 or less for enrollment. And then the final thing is that the majority owners, 51% or more of the business, his or her net worth is 250,000 or less. And we just ask that the CPA or banking institution that you do business with certify that on your end. We don't, that's not an auditing thing that I do, but we trust the financial institution that you work with, and that's the qualifying factor. And what that does is it provides awareness for the business locally, but also gives them an extra competitive edge when bidding with the city of Grand Rapids.
Yeah. So the city of Grand Rapids, we spend millions and millions of dollars every year on products and services and goods, and one of our goals is to support locally owned businesses and keep our money local. We know that that supports the local economy, it supports our neighbors, and it also helps entrepreneurs, especially as they build up their business. So I'm sure that you get asked this a lot. I know I do at times. Why is this program so important, and are other cities also being very intentional with trying to identify more micro LBEs to become vendors to support them through our procurement process?
Yes, so we have a very unique program. We are the only ones in the state with the micro local business enterprise program, and it was kind of birthed after Proposal 2 or the ban on affirmative action, which pretty much banned race-based programming, hiring, and whatnot from public institutions. But it's extremely critical to help grow our local economy. And when we think of micro businesses, those are businesses who are not quite well off or above the small business threshold. So they still, from us, need special consideration in regards to making sure that we curate opportunities that they could be successful as well. And granted, nothing's a handout at the city. We can't guarantee anything. However, if we could contract with more local companies and take that company from maybe a micro to even a half of the SBA standard or over, I think that does a great deal of justice for our local economy and hopefully prepare those players to do some state business, if not nationwide. So our micro local program is the premier program for any business looking to do business with the city, and our buyers will look at that listing to check and see if their company is on there. And that's the first stop for department buyers. When we prepare budgets and we think about long-term forecasting and planning, we like to make sure that we can spend a great deal back home.
Yeah. So give us some examples.
Absolutely.
I know I see all the folks that we contract with because I look at all of our bids and our procurement. But what are some of the companies that you feel are ripe to work more closely with the city?
Absolutely. So right now we just done this whole medical marijuana dance and policy, but these companies are moving into our area, and typically they're all from out of state, but we're trying to figure out the best way to make sure that we do as much business locally with these companies. So any company that certifies with us would be, I would say, very lucrative opportunity for them to contract with medical marijuana facilities. So what that looks like is, if you're a professional staffing agency and you certify with us, one of those companies might use you as well because they are looking to spend about 24% or more of their annual operating costs with micro locals, and they need companies to do so with. But not only staffing agency, but professional cleaning services, technology, security companies, website and design, the list goes on. But it's a ton of opportunities for us to make sure that some of our local companies can provide partnerships and contract with some of these facilities as they move into our area. And then kind of the hot topic as we look at the next 5-year projection will be the river restoration. And we know that's a huge economic driver for our area, 40 million in the river, 40 million outside the river. And we'll need everything from landscaping to tree removal to design to make sure that people who are looking to throw up new structures or to revitalize an existing business have you contract with companies that are in our micro local program as well. So the city buys everything from dog food to big trucks to uniforms, and Of course, we do construction contracting, so there's opportunities for everyone.
Yeah. So we have about 4 minutes left.
Absolutely.
So let's touch on one more thing, because I've had the opportunity to go out and talk to entrepreneurs and startups and local businesses, and at times there are some real barriers.
Absolutely.
And so whether it's having access to the type of insurance that's required, or bonding, or capital, if you are working with a company and there are barriers, how do you help them? And I know we have a lot of partners in the community that we work with, but talk about how do you help remove barriers to help people? And for those listening, anyone who is listening who wants to become a vendor, I want to make sure that if you have a barrier, that doesn't mean that the door is closed for you.
And so to your point, the first thing I do is consultation to make sure that the barrier that they identify or perceived barrier is the actual thing. Sometimes, I've met with plenty of business owners that what they perceive will be a struggle for the city is not so. But when it comes to bonding, that is a true issue. But what I encourage is for them to go and get bonding at whatever level they can acquire. So sometimes people don't want to go get bonded because they can't get the $2 million out the door or the 500,000, but a great strategy is start with 100,000, or where they allow you to get bonded, but take care of that relationship, and then resubmit or reapply and ask for 250,000, and then continue to bump it up. But that is a huge issue, or possible barrier for some companies when it comes to doing business with our engineering department. So anything outside of engineering does require bonding, so that's a good piece to highlight. But for the bonding piece, that's a challenge, and I think us at the city, as we move forward, maybe we could provide a pilot of sorts to kind of help remove some of those things. Absolutely.
Yeah, great. So we're almost out of time, but one thing I want to touch on, maybe even in this next segment, and you can maybe kick it off now, is you're also involved in a lot of things in the community.
Absolutely.
And one of them, which I find incredible, is your work with Midwest Tech.
Absolutely.
So for people who aren't familiar with Midwest Tech, do you want to just tell us what that is?
Absolutely. So the Midwest Tech Project is a think tank, advocacy, mentoring, and skill development organization geared to connect people of color to the world of technology and tech-related industries. So pretty much what we do there is we would like to democratize information about where the workforce of the future is headed. We know that from a workforce development standpoint, in 20, 30 years, automation will be running wild, and if our human capital don't produce that technology, if they don't maintain that technology, it's going to be very tough for them to find a livable and fulfilling job. So what we'd like to do is make sure that they have access to coding boot camps, such as Grand Circus and co-learning, or if they're interested in cybersecurity, that we connect them with a mentor in that space. I'm not a tech savvy guy by any means. I do my best, but what we do is lean on our ecosystem. And we know that that's a bottom line driver for that industry, and they can't find enough talent. So that's just a little bit of the work that we do there, but more importantly, we advocate to make sure that the information is accessible to all communities, and like to make sure that we get more people of color into the tech field as we move forward.
Yeah, well, I love the work you're doing with Midwest Tech.
Thank you so much.
As I said, after this short break, we can come back and revisit that a little bit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Emily Evers, and I am the Advancement Director of Artists Creating Together. ACT is a nonprofit organization here in Grand Rapids that empowers individuals with disabilities to learn, grow, and celebrate through the arts. We offer programs year-round for people of all ages and all abilities. One of our key programs is our Apprentice program for young adults with disabilities. This group of 10 individuals were hand-selected by Grand Rapids Public Schools based on artistic talent and promise, and have been working under the direction of teaching artist Becky Baker since last October. They have been learning how to hone in on their artistic skills, sell and market their artwork, and showcase it to the greater community. They've already had their art on display at the Grand Rapids Art Museum and are looking forward to their showcase and sale at Lions and Rabbits Art Gallery on Thursday, April 11 from 5 to 7 p.m. At Lions and Rabbits, they will have original frame pieces for sale, along with large and small prints and greeting cards. All sales go directly to the artists to further their work in the community. To find out more information about Artists Creating Together, our apprentice program, and the other services we offer, please visit artistscreatingtogether.org or visit our Facebook page at ACTWM to learn more.
Yeah.
Welcome back to City Connection. This is your opportunity, should you want to connect with AJ Hills with the city's business development department, and a lot of information there. We're going to kind of start things back up with Mayor had a little bit more to ask, but connect with us at email address cityconnection@grcmc.org or on GRTV's Facebook page. But Mayor, go ahead and finish your conversation having to do with the tech organization.
Yeah. So AJ can jump in on this as well. I've gone to a couple events.
Absolutely.
And there are so many things I love about Midwest Tech, in that they identify young people in the community who have the potential to want to work in the IT world, and we know, as AJ said, that that's a fast and furious growing field. And they do events, but then they also connect them to organizations like Grand Circus and WMCAT. But then the really cool thing that they do is they bring together individuals who are already working in the tech world, professionals from all over our city, from all of the different tech companies. And they have opportunities for young people to meet them and even to be mentored by them. And I know a couple executive directors or presidents of local tech companies who have actually hired young people that they met through Midwest Tech. And so it creates this very organic social networking opportunity for people within the field to meet with young people, particularly young people of color.
Yep. And to that point, so we've been able to place young people in paid internships. I'm big on making sure that young people spend their time acquiring the skill. We typically lose a lot of students to McDonald's and Myers because it's a buck and they need to make some money. But for us, we want to make sure that not only are they making money, but they're developing soft skills, they're developing the skills to be successful in the position, but also making those connections that we know last a lifetime, which is through mentorship. So last summer we had about 70 young men placed in paid internships ranging from coding and programming to design and refurbishing. Because so what we notice about our young people are they're already great with technology. It's more so about just turning the paradigm, the shifting the paradigm just a little bit to say, okay, let's produce or let's fix this thing. So we had a young man who used to come to our sessions, and he'll always have a broke iPhone, and he'll take it apart, put a new screen on, and that's the way he was spending his time as a hobby. But what we made him understand is plenty of people get paid good money to replace screen phones, right? And for us, ownership is key. So helping him understand that he could be, starting his own company just as a simple phone, screen replacement service. But more so, I think it's just about the confidence that builds in young people when they see how technology is very relevant to their life. Because a lot of the time, it's you hear technology is a very mythical word, and you don't quite understand how deep or how relevant it is to your daily practices, and that's what we try to integrate. So a lot of them, of course, listening to music all day, and that's a streaming service, right? And that it was a software that was developed by someone to meet the customer needs. So simple items like that they use every day, or now Uber and all these applications they have by phone that none of us would have ever had. It's at their fingertips daily. And we had a young man create his own video game, and he self-taught himself. And the way that we helped him was he just got stuck fixing the joystick on it. It was kind of like a nice airplane game, and he could dodge missiles, but if you get the coins, it creates points. But he just got stuck on the joystick. So what we did, we connected him with one of our mentors from Spectrum Health, and they fixed it in like maybe about 5 minutes. And from there, that was enough for the young man is Nate. He's a senior at Ottawa Hills to continue his development in video game and design. And we just like to make sure that young people are aware that there's a ton of opportunities out here. And sometimes just making sure you get connected with a mentor or someone to help accelerate that path.
Yeah.
I'm struck by you saying 70 young men have been able to go through this program, and I'm just wondering, do you struggle to have women involved or young girls involved,
So
or
we
is it
just-
focusing on men?
Oh, so we started off, myself and the co-founder were both young men, so we started off catering to young men, but we actually launched our young ladies program. Over the last year, we have a new team member by the name of Takia Haywood, who has, she's in graphic design, but she's helped launch our young ladies program, so this will be the first year that we had young ladies, and they'll be connected the same way this summer, and making sure that they get relevant workplace experience and also paid for their time there as well.
Very exciting.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it reminds me, I went, I can't remember if you were there, I went to the ribbon cutting and opening of the expansion of Tech Defenders,
Oh yeah, yeah.
which is this great local company. And I can't remember the exact statistic that the president said during the opening, but I believe he said the average age of their staff was like, what, 26. And it was this incredibly energetic group, and they talked about their commitment to being mentors for young people wanting to get into the industry.
Absolutely.
And that young people have all these skills. They do technology, they fix technology that's broken, or they redesign it, or they'll take and recycle old tech, you know. I'm not very techie either.
Laptops,
Laptops,
hard drives.
all of
I'm just
that.
trying to help out the best I can.
And they reconstruct them and sell them, and they grew so quickly. They expanded earlier this year,
Wow.
which is fantastic. Right here, they had an opportunity to expand, and they decided they wanted to stay in the city. And
So the jobs for those people
Yeah.
that you're bringing up,
Oh yeah.
that's
yeah.
great.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting. I was going to follow up too on what AJ said, because and we talked about this in the first segment about the marijuana applications, and it is a little confusing how that is
yeah.
tied to micro LBEs. So the City Commission, when we passed the ordinance, we knew that, as I said, getting first in line was going to be important. And so we tried to figure out, was there anything we could do to incent commitments that were aligned with our values, and with our value to support our local community. So we created this MyVita. So it's a voluntary economic development agreement. So marijuana voluntary economic development agreement. And in that, if you, as an applicant, as a marijuana applicant, if you commit to certain things, you can get points. And then the more points that you acquire, that will tee you up to be in like a first tier, second tier, third tier of
that
who
lottery.
of that lottery.
Okay.
For who gets selected first. So one of the elements of the MyVita is that if you commit to utilizing a percentage of micro LBEs, so companies that are certified with the city as a micro LBE, then you can get a point in the MyVita. And so that's how the work that we do in AJ's department, it really intertwines with a lot of other work that we're doing in the city. And then as we think about other policies and procedures that we're passing, how do we make sure that we are encouraging others within the community to support micro LBEs?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So,
And then one addition to that, Mayor, our micro-local certification is also acknowledged by GRPS and GRCC. So not only are you certified to do business with us in that capacity, but you can also go over to Grand Rapids Community College and Grand Rapids Public Schools. So there's a ton of value there. I would just say, it's about making sure that business owners are aware of our certification and making sure that we get more people in the pipeline to take advantage of the opportunity.
yeah.
You said you do a lot of time in consulting on this, and it was, before we forget, and we're not done yet, but to get some of your contact information out there so that if anybody is trying to wade through might be the system to become a vendor.
Absolutely. So AJ Hills, my email is A as in Apple, Hills, HILLS, @grcity.us. And then my cell phone is 616-729-5802, and either work great for me. And I'm looking forward to hearing and working with anybody, because it isn't as cut and dry as we might think it is from the inside. So no question is dumb, and you never could call too much. So we leave our inbox and our cell phones open, and we're looking forward to communicating with anybody who wants to come to our great city and potentially bring new business opportunities here for our residents and other businesses.
Yeah.
You know what, I was going to say, a little bit off track, but last month we had the Rapid here, we had Andrew Johnson, and we talked a little bit about business development and the hopes for South Division with the Silver Line going down there. And I just wondered if you wanted to weigh in on that a little bit about maybe some efforts that haven't quite paid off yet, and what the thoughts are? What's the next steps for kind of developing the business on the Silver Line?
On the Silver Line, I would have to, kind of defer that. But I don't have much experience with the Silver Line discussion in regards to expansion. But however, more access to more places, that are in main routes for people to either, walk to or get to in the community. I'm all for making sure that transportation is accessible to all. So I have to defer that to Madam Bliss here.
No, I mean, that is, it's interesting because potentially, whether we look at Division Street or other business districts, the more we can support our local businesses to be successful, particularly those that need a storefront.
Absolutely.
There are these great opportunities to open up a brick and mortar location in our neighborhoods, whether it's the Silver Line or some of our other neighborhood business districts. So I do see a connection there. The other connection, going back to what AJ said earlier, we have some really strong partnerships with Grand Rapids Public Schools, Grand Rapids Community College, and actually Grand Valley State University. And we have been working really deliberately to identify ways that we can work with our partners around economic development, but also workforce development. So even at the city, as we look at openings we have internally at the city, I mean, we're talking about supporting potential companies to make sure that they're able to do business with the city. But we also want to make sure that people who live in the city can get a job with the city or a job with other public entities. And so we've worked really closely with GRCC, Grand Rapids Community College, to identify programs that can build skills for individuals to apply for jobs at the city of Grand Rapids. We just supported funding to work with Grand Valley State University to provide training for potential police officers. So for individuals who want to go, who can't afford to go through the academy, we can hire them as recruits and we can support them while they go through the academy. And then once they are hired, if they're hired, then we can pay them for that. So we're really trying to figure out ways to work with all of our different partners to help, especially help young people who are graduating out of Grand Rapids Public Schools to be successful either in a career or starting a business or connecting and being a vendor with the city or with other public entities. So it's a real multi-pronged approach.
Okay, so how is some of this informed what the college or the university is doing in their course structure when it comes to staffing the city or business development opportunities? Have you actually seen some curriculum efforts that address it?
Yeah, so we just did a program, and AJ, I don't know if you were involved with this, with Public Works.
Okay, yeah.
So our Public Works Department worked with GRCC to come up, I believe it was a 13-week program where they taught the skills needed to work in the public works, which is our water and sewer and streets and sanitation, which are really important jobs in our city, as we all know, but they're also good paying jobs at the city. And so we want to be as intentional as possible to hire people who grew up in the city, who live in the city, who are looking for a job, who may have had barriers in the past, or they haven't been able to, get in the city or get into one of those jobs in the past. Can we build the skills and provide education that will enable them to take the test, pass the test, and get in the door?
Great.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then just to add to that, with some of our river work, and we know that workforce development opportunities will be coming from there. We have a partnership again with GRCC where they'll be making sure that certifications and whatnot that need to be had by individuals looking to take advantage of these opportunities will go through GRCC for training. So moving forward, we'll have multiple outreach opportunities around the river, from business opportunities to workforce development, to make sure that community are well aware in advance of what's coming down the pipeline as this river thing kicks off, and we're excited to restore the rapids.
Great.
Yes.
So, AJ Hills with Business Development Department. Are you business developer?
Business developer in the Office of Diversity and
Gotcha.
Inclusion.
Thank you so
Absolutely.
much. Thanks
Thank
for
you so
joining
much.
us on City Connection, and throw out your email address one more time.
A Hills, A as in Apple, HILLS @grcity.us.
AJ, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
We'll
Thanks,
take a quick
AJ.
break and be
Appreciate
right
it.
back with City Connection here on GRTV's Livewire, Channel 24.
the Rapidian for the community provides an alternative.
To be the eyes of somebody who's not there.
It's more honest, more authentic, and more true.
And you do have the freedom to talk about things because they're things that need to be talked about, not because they'll get readers or viewers or clicks.
Sometimes it feels intimidating to write a news story or to write a story about a community issue. What I love about the Rapidian is that they make it really simple and easy.
So it's not like you have to meet this deadline by this time.
I'll be eating a sandwich in one hand and then I'm like typing in the other.
I love the freedom to be able to write from wherever.
I think it's a really powerful experience when people are able to tell their story and to be heard.
Anyone can have a voice.
Anybody can speak.
It's a platform for the community to tell its own story in a very authentic way, and that's powerful.
A community has to be involved in order for it to be sustainable. And so it tells you something about our community.
Welcome back to City Connection. Again, our thanks to the city's A.J. Hill visiting with us for the last half hour. Now to your questions, and we do have a few already, and we'll start with this one. This one comes from Carol, and it says, how does the city support artists and arts organizations here in Grand Rapids? Do you feel there's good support for young people who may not have access to arts education in our K-12 schools?
Yeah, so the city, arts isn't really in the city's wheelhouse, so we don't have a arts department or anything like that, but we do partner and support a lot of arts organizations in the community in really a multitude of ways. So we support a lot of the events that are arts and culture based, so Festival of the Arts, Hispanic Festival, Mexican Festival, African American Festival, Jazz Fest. So we do a lot of work through our events to support arts. We also have an Arts Advisory Council, and they meet periodically, and they're actively engaged in public art. So we are blessed in our community to have a lot of public art. The city is actively involved in that because so much of the public art is in public spaces. And then obviously we have a lot of arts organizations that we support in any way that we can, whether it's the UICA or Grand Rapids Art Museum or the Public Museum, DisArt, I know who we've had on the show before. Chris. And so, I would say that we are supportive. I don't see us really leading other than in the public art space. Really, the city needs to be involved in that. And then outside of that, we support the arts organizations. But I should say, speaking of arts, we have a really big celebration this year as we celebrate the 50th anniversary of La Grande Vitesse. So Alexander Calder's beautiful piece that landed and was installed here in the city going on 50 years ago. We'll be doing a huge celebration in May and June, celebrating that milestone. We're bringing in a speaker to Econ Club on May 6th who's going to be talking about Alexander Calder and specifically about La Grande Vitesse. And then Festival of the Arts is going to have a great lineup this year, and they're going to be doing a lot to highlight the really momentous occasion and also reminding people why it was so significant 50 years ago for Little Grand Rapids to be selected to receive national funding for this significant public art piece.
One of the more famous public art pieces out there.
Yes.
So that in 1969, I'll just do a quick plug. There's actually a citizen journalism article on the Rapidian right now talking a little bit about it, how it was received at that time, and a little bit about how that came about. It was kind of interesting.
Oh,
so
I'll have to read it because it was, I'm not take up too much time, but it was rather controversial. And you probably know that from reading.
From reading that article.
I haven't read the article, but I will. I'll make a note to read that.
Well, and I just wanted to say, is this a good time to update on the Calder Plaza remake?
Oh, sure, yeah. So we are in design phase. So a couple years ago, we reimagined the Calder. How do we take this sea of concrete and make it a more actively used space? It's a huge space. It's one of the largest spaces in the city, in downtown. It's, if you look at all the space, even on both sides of the city building, it's about 4 acres.
Oh, really?
It's considered a park, so it's
A concrete
designated a
park.
park land. Underneath it is parking. And so what we decided to do is really look at phase 1. So that would be the area that's kind of in front of the county building off of Ottawa. And we're in design phase right now and looking at the possibility of building a building and a permanent stage where people can perform, providing some shade because, as you know, it's blistering hot out there sometimes. And then what can we do to create some movable movable furniture or
kind of design
tree
it for
or green. Yeah, design it so it's a flexible space.
Yeah, different scenarios there.
Yeah, so that process is underway, but we're hoping, we're really hoping that we'll be able to start to do some construction, and that phase 1, sometime by the end of this year. But then next year, Ottawa is slated to be redesigned and restructured, and with that, we're going to be redesigning the entry of the Calder, making it more accessible, particularly for people who have disabilities. And then we're really looking at how do we make sure that we're creating space for potentially food trucks or other vendors in order to get up there, and then make sure that it has electricity, so for musicians. And so there's a number of things that will be happening probably the end of this year into next year.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to just rip through a bunch of these
go
here.
ahead.
That was great information. This one is, has the City Commission ever talked about endorsing driver's licenses for all? It's including undocumented folks, and maybe it's a voice of support or not. But
yeah, so I know that this has been a conversation at the state level, more so than at the city level. Several years ago, the city actually, we did talk about it when we passed a resolution where we accepted at the city level all of the consulate general IDs. So we made a decision that for all city services, if you had a consulate general ID, which is an identification from your home country, we would accept that as identification. So we passed that. It was a few years ago now. And I know that there has been some talk at the state. I have consistently shared with our West Michigan representatives that I'm supportive of licenses for all. And I'm just not familiar with where that is at the state. If there is, if there's a bill that's moving, I don't know where it is at the state level, but I do believe that it needs to happen at the state level.
Okay. But I've already voiced support on that one then.
Yeah, and we did talk about it when we, and I'll have to go look. I can't remember if that was 3 or 4 years ago. It may have been 4 years ago. Mayor Hartwell's last year, but I'll have to go back and look.
Okay. One more question we have from the community, this one from Ashley. It says, Chicago recently passed an ordinance, and it's limiting the number of prescriptions allowed to be filled per hour. And this is for the purpose of ensuring that there's time to counsel the patients on the filled prescription accurately. Has Grand Rapids ever talked about an ordinance of that level? Lots of talk out there right now about
specifically for
pharmaceuticals.
Opioids?
It doesn't mention that, but I think it probably addresses that.
Yeah, so we haven't looked at that locally. In fact, I would have to research to see if we could do something like that locally. I know the state has, especially over the last 2 years, they've looked really closely at what they can do to try to really bridge the opioid epidemic. You may you may recall that several doctors are being monitored based on the number of prescriptions that they are giving
Locally.
At the state level.
Gotcha,
So
okay.
so that's really state. What we have done locally, we've done a couple of things, specifically around opioids. All of our police and fire obviously have been trained. They all carry Narcan or naloxone. We put AEDs in all of our buildings and our vehicles. And so that's really on the response side. And then about 1.5 years ago, we collaborated with a number of cities and counties throughout the state, and we're part of a joint lawsuit against pharmaceutical companies, suing them for the cost that we've really what our public cost has been in order to respond to the opioid epidemic. At the county level, there is a task force that is actively working on it, and I know the health department and the medical examiner obviously is very concerned about this, and there's been more county-wide organization around what can we do to really prevent people from especially overdosing on opioids.
Okay.
It's a huge issue and it's very concerning. I think, identifying, and this is true for really all issues, what can we do at the city level? What do we have the authority to do? I think sometimes people think we have a whole lot more authority than we do. Many things we're actually preempted from doing by the state. And then what is appropriate for the county level, especially around public health? Typically, it's the county that takes on issues around public health. And then what is really under the authority of the state or the federal government? And sometimes that can be really confusing when you have multiple levels.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then I know we want to talk about this, so I'll bring this one up right now. New voting opportunities when it comes to early voting, whether it's called absentee, and that was kind of settled in the last election.
Yeah.
So what does that mean people have the availability to do? We've got school elections coming up in May. We've got a primaries in August, and then general elections at the city level in November, I think.
Yes. So I'm so glad you brought this up, because our city clerk has been working actively on this since the ballot change in November. And so if you are a registered voter in the city of Grand Rapids, and if you're not, I should use this caveat, if you're already on the permanent absentee ballot list, so if you always vote absentee, you're on a permanent list, then you will stay on that list.
Okay.
But if you're not on that list, you should have received, and you're a registered voter in the city, you should have received a trifold in the mail, and you can, and on the top of it, it says vote from home, and you can fill out a little postcard, send it into our clerk, and you can get registered to get to go on the permanent absentee ballot list, and you can vote from home in the future if you want. Now, some people have told me, Mayor, I don't want to. I love going to the ballot box. That's perfectly fine too. But since we sent out that trifold, we've already, I think by early last week, it was well over 4,000 we already received in the span of like 10 days. So we're really hoping that people take advantage of this new opportunity to vote from home, and it's seamless. It's no reason absentee, and we are doing everything we can to educate the community about this option, and then get them, if they want to, on that list so that they can get their ballot. And you're right, we have a May election. In May, actually, there's only a couple precincts in the city that have an election, and that is if you fall within the Kentwood School District.
Okay.
So if you're on the far southeast side, you'll have an election in May. And then obviously we have August primaries in the city, and then November general.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we're about closing out for this session, but I want to say congratulations to you, appointed to the GVSU Endowed Chair for the Frederick Meyer Honors College. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm really excited. I'll miss teaching. So I've been teaching for about 10 years in the School of Social Work. And I'll miss teaching in the School of Social Work, but I'm really excited at this opportunity. I'll be working with juniors in the Honors College and teaching classes around leadership and community problem solving.
Great. Congratulations on that opportunity.
Thanks.
Well, we'll be back. We're closing out. We'll be back on, I believe it's May 6th, first Monday of the month for City Connection. This is JRTV's Livewire, Channel 24. City Connection closing out with Mayor Bliss. I'm Linda Galash.